The PlayAction Podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
The Buffalo Bills are back in action this week after a well-timed late-season bye. And for the Bills offense, they face what on paper is a very tough opponent, defending NFC champion San Francisco 49ers, who have a highly ranked defense, but come in staggering a bit at 5-6.
Yeah, like we were talking about before recording, there's a lot of question marks about this game right now, really that have to do with San Francisco and who will be available. Other question marks about the snow, the game itself, but I think when you just look at kind of what players they will have, you know, Nick Bosa has been dealing with a groin injury. You go down the list, there's a whole bunch of guys who have different, either are on IR or dealing with stuff right now.
Right. I mean, Brock Purdy, their starting quarterback, has a shoulder injury. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But yeah, players, Nick Bosa, you know, they're all pro defensive end, 7 sacks, injured. His status, I mean, we may not know till late in the week. There's a starting defensive tackle, Jordan Elliott, left the Green Bay game with a concussion. He's up in the air. They previously lost. He's actually playing for Javon Hargrave, who's on IR, who's a higher caliber defensive tackle. We're thinking they're going to get back their top cornerback, or Charvarius Ward. He has been out the last 3 games due to the death of his 1-year-old daughter due to heart problems. Their other outside cornerback, Renardo Green, left the game, a Green Bay game, with a neck injury. They're on their number 3 safety because their starting safety, Hufanga, is on IR. So banged up on defense.
Yeah, and that makes it a little harder to look at what this defense has been. You know, over the last stretch, they've been such a solid defense. They were number 1 in 2022. But, you know, these injuries just make them a little, you know, less of the 49ers that they're used to being.
Right. And they've been, you know, even with the injuries that we've cited, I mean, they're 6th in the league in yards allowed, 6th in passing. They are 21st in points allowed. But there's some chinks in the armor. They're 26th on third down defense, and the run defense, especially if Bosa doesn't play, is a problem. Because while the numbers look okay, they're 11th in yards allowed, they're 21st in DVOA. A closer look is their run defense has not been good, especially due to the injuries.
Well, what stands out to me, too, is that 29th in red zone.
Yeah.
Certainly don't want to see that. What do you think is the key to the Bills for their offense against the 49ers?
Bills, I think, should be able to run the ball on this. I see the Bills powering up. Green Bay ran it on them, gashed them. I think this is a better matchup than the numbers on paper look.
Okay.
I think the Bills should be able to run the ball, and I think that the Niners, another guy, they're without one of their star linebackers, Dre Greenlaw, who's been out all season because he tore his ACL or injured in the Super Bowl. But his replacement, Devondre Campbell, is not the caliber of Greenlaw. So I see them picking on him in the pass game, tight end, over the middle, and run the ball. And that, given the weather, might be necessary.
Right. We teased it earlier. There could be snow this game. Still a little hard to tell. It seems like what we are seeing now as of Wednesday is that Saturday is going to have more weather than Sunday. Right. But still, that can always affect the run game for a game like this. Yeah.
It's like temperatures dropping from the 30s into the high 20s for game time. Windy. There is going to be snow south, but it kind of looks like it's going to be south of the stadium. But meteorologist Don Paul, who's a contributor to the Buffalo News, says keep your knees loose. Not exactly sure what that means, but bundle up.
Yeah. Now, a massive question for the 49ers offense as well, as you mentioned before, Mark. We are unsure as we record this if they will have quarterback Brock Purdy, who is dealing with a shoulder injury right now. Don't know if he'll be available for this game against the Bills, which obviously changes the caliber of their offense a good bit. But let's dive into kind of what the 49ers offense looks like with or without him.
Yeah, again, it's a great offense on paper, which is why they went to the Super Bowl last year. And even now, despite all their injuries, it's amazing. At 5-6, they're fourth in the league in yards. They're fourth in passing. Even their advanced analytics are good. Their DVOA, but I mean they are banged up. And Purdy, who has had a really good season this year, I think better, as good or better than last year, even though they're 5-6. But he's got a shoulder injury, and they don't want it's serious. It could be, you don't want to play around with that. And they have a slew of other injuries. Their all-world left tackle Trent Williams, ankle injury, didn't play against Green Bay. Their left guard Aaron Banks, concussion against Green Bay. He's up in the air. Their star, they've been playing all year, virtually all year, without their best receiving weapon, Brandon Ayuk. He's on IR, out for the year. Christian McCaffrey is back. Their all-pro running back, offensive player of the year last year, but has not looked. He's went back 2 games, hasn't looked as explosive. So if Purdy doesn't play, I mean, you can start scanning other Stevie shows to watch in the second half. But if he plays, they're formidable if everybody plays.
Yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan has always impressed me with what he does and how he's able to operate an offense. You're nodding along as I say this. What stands out to you about him?
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact they're fourth in yards with no Ayuk and most of the season no McCaffrey is amazing. There are a lot of interesting elements. The Niners typically are a great run after the catch team. They have Deebo Samuel. He's been a little dinged up, but is still a serious threat. They are the number 1 21 personnel team. 2 running backs with a fullback. 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end. Their tight end is all-world George Kittle. So it'll be interesting. Miami runs the Shanahan offense, and the Bills got gashed on the ground by Miami with Alec Ingold, Miami's fullback, on the field. So you're going to see Kyle Juszczyk. I apologize. He's their 8-time Pro Bowl fullback. And I would think they're going to try to replicate Miami's run game, which was very successful against the Bills.
Yeah, they haven't had quite the explosive plays they're used to in the past, but as we've mentioned many times, they are so banged up. That's been a factor, obviously, but the offense has still been a little limited there. But they'll see what they can do against the Bills, who their defense coming into this is continuing to get healthier and healthier. Not sure who exactly they'll have back as it's early in the week as we record this.
Yeah, Matt Milano, has resumed practicing. I'm kind of expecting the Bills to be cautious with Milano's return.
I would agree. Yeah. No, I think they'll give him as much time as he needs.
It is an interesting question when Milano is fully healthy. Let's say, I would think it's going to be a job share with Dorian Williams for a week, at least a couple weeks. When Milano is 100% back healthy, Milano's the starter.
Yeah.
But Dorian Williams has played very well. He is on pace for the most tackles by any Bill in the Sean McDermott era. If he were to play all 17 games fully, but which is probably not going to happen. So he's probably not going to. But what do you do about Dorian Williams when Milano is fully healthy?
It's a good question. Williams was my pick for pleasant surprise for the roundtable that we did during the bye week of just, someone who impressed me this season. And I think that's a tough question because we know Milano's caliber and what he can do, but it's also Dorian has been so improved because of these added reps. And then what happens when those go away?
Yeah, I think they're going to need to spoon-feed Milano a little. It's maybe unrealistic to think Milano's going to be his peak level as soon as he comes back.
For sure.
But it is a good problem to have. And how do you keep Dorian in the mix, let's say, in the playoffs when let's say Milano, good case scenario, Milano is fully recovered and playing great by the end of December. What do you do with Dorian Williams? I think there was we saw some interesting wrinkles from Bobby Babich in the Kansas City game. Late in the game, they used Dorian Williams as a spy on Patrick Mahomes and as a spy / blitzer in the dime defense. Really like that. That worked well. So I think, next time if they play Kansas City again, that could be an option. Also, Baltimore. With Lamar Jackson, you would want to spy him if they have to play Baltimore. I know a lot of Bills fans are hoping somehow Baltimore gets eliminated by somebody before they have to play the Bills. That's a down the road thing. But I think so. I think what does this all mean? They got to find some way to give Dorian Williams some snaps. He's played too good to just leave him collecting dust on the bench. Would you agree with that?
I agree. Yeah. I like it.
The topic of our third segment today is scoreboard watching. And when your team is 9-2, one of the great things about being a fan is scoreboard watching is so much more fun because you have a lot of different rooting interests, and I have no doubt Bills fans are watching NFL games with their eyes pointed toward what is the ideal dream scenario for the Buffalo Bills. So let's dive into that a little bit. Katherine here with the Bills coming up on a game Sunday night against San Francisco. But before Sunday night happens, there's all key games to watch.
I know this will be so hard for Bills fans, but they're going to need to root against the Miami Dolphins this Thursday. If the Dolphins lose at Green Bay on Thursday night, where they are playing, and the Bills win this Sunday, the Bills clinch the division.
Amazing. December 1st.
December 1st,
clinch.
Right? That's wild. You and I both believe they were going to clinch no matter what.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of
right.
when.
Right.
But they can do it as early as this Sunday, again, with a Dolphins loss and a Bills win.
They'd be clinch. 5 up with 5 to go and 2 wins over the Dolphins. Right. So, okay. Other things to watch for.
Yeah, so let's go just kind of around the AFC. Where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, obviously the number one, the ideal scenario is the Bills would get the number 1 seed and home field advantage. They have the tiebreaker, of course, over Kansas City, but Kansas City is 1 game up. So Kansas City needs to lose at least 1. The ideal scenario for the Bills would be Kansas City loses 2. And that would give the Bills some wiggle room to perhaps drop a game somewhere along the way. They got a really tough one at Detroit coming up, or not to take anything away from the San Francisco meeting, especially if the weather's bad. Fluky things can happen. But Kansas City, they got Las Vegas. You would think everybody, Patrick Mahomes talking about we need a blowout here. We need to blow somebody out, and soon. After they got by on a last-second field goal against Carolina. So Vegas is an ideal blowout opportunity for the Chiefs. But after that, they got the Chargers, tough game. Cleveland, not a gimme. Houston, Kansas City will be favored in that one. Pittsburgh, somewhat tough game. And then they close the season at Denver. Denver surely will need to win that game. Denver gave the Chiefs a tough game. So
they usually do.
Yeah, that division opponent. Division opponents are never easy. That's Kansas City's schedule. You could certainly see them losing 1.
Oh, for sure. And I think especially, I don't know, we wrote about this in our last roundtable as well. Kansas City always finds a weird way to win, but they also should not be needing these weird ways quite as much as they have when you look at their record.
No doubt.
Like, they just did it again over Carolina.
Right. So then, you look at the rest of the AFC, and, Baltimore, even though they don't have the second best record, they're 8-4. They are the sort of formidable behemoth on the Bills' radar. They're 8-4. Bills 9-2. I mean, you would think if Baltimore loses 1 more game, they're out of the number 2 seed race. Baltimore plays 4:25, a tough game against Philly this week.
They do.
On
Yeah,
Sunday.
that's one I'm very interested in seeing, just for,
Right, Philly is rolling, so I mean that would be if Philly wins that game. Baltimore is pretty much out of the number 2 seed race. They have Giants, Pittsburgh, Houston, Cleveland. A couple tough games there. They've already lost to Pittsburgh once. That rematch is at home.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is 8-3 and theoretically in the race for the number 2 seed, but
The end of their schedule is bonkers. They've got at Cincinnati, Cleveland, at Philly, at Baltimore, Kansas City, Cincinnati again. What a tough schedule.
Right, and Cincinnati is a really tough out, obviously. Joe Burrow is leading the league in passing. Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City. Pittsburgh's 8-3. I mean, there's no way they're not losing 2 games.
No.
They're going to lose 2 games somewhere along the way. I mean, their ceiling is 5 wins. And 5 wins takes them out of the number 2 seed. Houston already has 5 losses.
Yeah.
Even though they got the tiebreaker edge against Buffalo. So, the number 2 seed, that Baltimore-Philly game is a big game, but the number 2 seed is looking pretty good for the Bills. Obviously, if the Bills were to get to 5 losses, that would mean a lot of things went wrong the last month of the season. So it'll be, interesting to watch. I think Bills fans, definitely going to be rooting for Philly. And then, you almost, actually, if Pittsburgh beat Cincinnati, that wouldn't be bad. I think you look at the AFC, I don't think any teams would love to play Cincinnati in the playoffs the way Joe Burrow is throwing the ball around.
No, it's an interesting playoff picture for sure, just kind of how it could still fall from here. We will be back next week with still following that playoff picture and, of course, following the Bills up close for everything they're going up against. Make sure you're reading everything on buffalonews.com and listening to your podcast there as well.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.